Lee, we've been talking a bit about the realities of this whole Afghanistan exit, and frankly, the realities of the whole 20-year engagement. And you have a very different perspective, frankly, than I'm used to hearing. 10 years ago, you wrote a book. I'm just going to reference it here quickly. The Strong Horse: Power, Politics, and a Clash of Arab Civilizations, which I think, as far as I can tell, was after 10 years of trying to figure out how 9/11 happened, this was your answer to that question, kind of your quest. And now you've taken that knowledge, I guess, another 10 years forward. So tell me, what is it that you're seeing exactly?
Well, that book was about, you'll remember at the time, the big question that everyone was asking and they wanted the answer to was, why do they hate us? Why did 9/11 happen? Why do they hate us? And my answer was, it's not about us. We've taken it too personally. And of course, I'm a native New Yorker. So being in New York on September 11th and being covered in the ashes of your neighbors it's a terrible thing. I took it personally. I went to the Middle East to find out what was going on. And the answer is, it's about all these different struggles inside of the region itself. And insofar as that can be projected on Afghanistan, what we see that Afghanistan itself is not a coherent nation, right? The people who are now running it, the Taliban, these are Pashtun tribesmen who are galvanized by a fundamentalist version of Islam. Their struggle is with many other different groups inside of Afghanistan. This is one of the reasons why Afghanistan is not a coherent nation, and that is the reason, or one reason why, it's the local reason why America's efforts to turn Afghanistan into a democracy was always doomed to failure. What I mean by local reason, that's why the Afghanis would not be able to hold their side up. There are problems with the United States mission in Afghanistan, the 20-year mission, that are only about the United States. So we had two different sides that had their own problems. So what was going on for 20 years was a catastrophe in the making. And Joe Biden's withdrawal, I agree with the baseline reading that it's chaotic, it's dangerous, people are getting hurt. But I also believe that it reflects America's 20-year mission in Afghanistan, which was also chaotic. There was no plan for that either. So the idea that this is happening, unfolding the way it is now, should come as no surprise to us.
Well, and so that's really interesting. You recently wrote this piece in Tablet, which I found to be incredibly useful and thoughtful. But it almost says something that's a little bit different. The title is "Asabiya Wins Every Time," but essentially the case you make is, I think Asabiya, if I understand, translates as coherence or kind of ability to work together.
Cohesion. It's really a political term used by Ibn Khaldun, a medieval Islamic historian, one of the greats. But yes, group solidarity, cohesion, right?
And but so you're basically saying that this loose grouping of tribes, essentially, that you're saying made it very difficult for the Afghans to keep up their end, as you describe it, was actually, they actually had a lot more cohesion than America. I mean, that's the case you make, right?
Absolutely. The Taliban, as a singular force, has much more cohesion, and their fight was for primacy in this particular region where they live. Our leadership is confused, not only about what to do in Afghanistan, but what's important to do for the United States. One of the points I make is they are so deracinated, so alienated from their own society, is that they tried to graft the effects of our civilization onto a foreign society that needed to be bribed to accept those gifts, right? We spoke a little bit about before. At first, the American leadership wanted to build a democracy there. They said, well, let's tailor our results. Let's be a little more modest, and let's look for instead, how about a national police force or a military? But these are the effects of our civilization. You have to have a nation before you can have a national police force or a national army. It's like designing Christmas tree ornaments if you don't have a Christmas tree. So the problem with us is our leadership is incoherent compared to something like the Taliban, which is very coherent, bound by the same tribe, bound by the same version of the same religion, and determined to rule. Those are all very, very important features. Those are the necessary features of leadership.
Well, and it just reminds me of something that I saw, that the Taliban had basically one goal. The U.S. had 18. I don't know if it's actually 18, but I guess that's the idea here.
I don't think they had any goal, frankly. I mean, I think I saw that same picture where there were all these different posters on a wall. Here's what the U.S. wants to do here and that. I don't think there was a goal. I think that whatever goal the United States had, or whatever the stated goals were, unfortunately, I think it was cover for something corrupt and something rotten. And that's the other issue about Afghanistan. It wasn't just there wasn't a strategic plan or strategic vision what the United States would do there. It was also corrupt and corrupting. And so that's why everyone who is now saying, well, everyone agreed that it was time to leave Afghanistan after 20 years, after thousands of American deaths, after trillions spent. No, in fact, in Washington, D.C., there is no one who wanted to leave Afghanistan ever. And so that's a major problem, how corrupt and how corrupting this mission was.
Okay, wait a sec. You're going to have to sort of break this down a little bit for me, because frankly, everybody's saying, as far as I can tell, that we needed to leave. It's the right thing to do. Well, not everybody, but there seems to be some kind of consensus, and people are saying, well, it's just the way that it was done that's problematic. But you're saying that nobody or virtually nobody wanted to? Tell me more.
In Washington, no one wanted to leave. I mean, a lot of people, when we describe Washington and we describe Pentagon, right, which is the world's largest and most powerful bureaucracy, they talk about the Pentagon and defense lobbyists, and they talk about weapon systems, and they talk about people like Congresswoman Liz Cheney defending the defense industry. Liz Cheney was very much against withdrawing from Afghanistan, and she made that case against President Donald Trump. So there was a large constituency inside of Congress against withdrawing. But the important thing that people don't quite understand is, because we're used to thinking about it again in terms of political alignment, that people on the right are warmongers. They like war. They like defense systems. They like they like donations coming from the defense industry. It's also on the left, right? Washington is a democratic city, right? The people who actually live there. I lived in Washington for many years. I can tell you there are no neighborhoods where Donald Trump walked away a winner. There were no neighborhoods that voted for Mitt Romney or John McCain in Washington, D.C. It's a democratic city. That's the constituency for Democrats. All of these people, the reason that Washington got so large in the last 20 years is because the amount of money that was coming in, especially through Afghanistan. I have a relative who works at a company that became a company worth over hundreds of millions of dollars because of the USAID work, the development work they did in Afghanistan. So the money wasn't just going to people on the right. It's not just going to defense contractors. It was going to the left as well. The nice people that we see wearing the pink pussy hats at the Women's March and stuff like this, all the people on the left who are protesting against Donald Trump being a fascist and Hitler and this and this and that, all of their 401ks were tied up in Afghanistan. The amount of money that was going through Afghanistan on the left and the right is astonishing. That's how the city grew over 100,000 by over 100,000. I think at this point probably by many, many more. I had that stat a few years ago, but in the last 20 years. So no one in Washington wanted to leave Afghanistan.